Let's learn how to take ChatGPT and integrate it with Notion today. We're going to be using ChatGPT and Zapier AI Actions in order to expedite our workflow process. You're going to learn how to take data files, condense it, push it towards Notion. We're going to learn how to even talk to these type of models in this context. So overall, let's learn how to start leveraging these kind of models in the context of Notion. Welcome back to Corporate AI, y'all. So I have my test account here for Notion, and we just, I set up a random page here, which is called Testing AI. We're going to utilize this in today's tutorial, and my goal of today's tutorial is one, to show you how to even communicate in the context of when you want to communicate with a specific API. Also, understanding the limitations that are currently afforded to us when leveraging AI actions in this context. But overall, just get a general understanding of how to approach this topic in the context of Notion. Before we even begin and dive into that topic, go ahead and check out that video right there. That's going to show you how to even enable and get AI actions, so we can actually start leveraging it within ChatGPT. This video right here is just going to go over specifically in the context of Notion and how do we leverage it in that context. First thing we need to understand is that for any type of API we plan on using with Zapier, we got to understand its limitations when it comes to its actions. So when we're using it in the context of ChatGPT, we actually don't have to worry about the trigger at all, because the trigger is just going to be us talking to it. So all we have to care about is the actions. So as you see right now, this is what is afforded to us by Zapier, such as creating a database item, updating the database item, creating a page, finding a database item. In our specific context, we're going to be using and leveraging the function and action of creating a page. On top of that, one thing that is limited and we don't have access to yet in the context of Zapier AI Actions is API requests and app extensions. Sadly, we don't have access to that yet. This would be very powerful once we do get access to it, because then this will allow us to do basically everything that's available within a specific software's documentation. For now though, and today, we're going to go ahead and leverage create page. So we are over in our Zapier AI Actions GPT, like I referenced before. You can go ahead and watch that other video if you don't know how to use it. And the way we're going to approach this is we're going to just start off by getting to our AI Actions page. We're going to create the underlying action we're going to use today. If you're like, how the heck did you get to this page? Go ahead and check it out in the description down below. So this is a different UI user interface comparative to just regular Zapier when you use it in other contexts. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add a new action here. So I want to just showcase a pretty cool use case here where we're going to have data provided. We're going to have basically ask it to format its actions and specific outputs. This is going to allow you to really understand how to talk to GPTs in the context of external APIs, and more specifically for Zapier. So for the action today, we're going to do Notion, and we're going to go ahead and choose create page. Like I said before, we can't do API yet. That'll be extremely powerful once we can do that. We're going to choose our account here. Your next question might be, how do I connect to my account if I don't see it? You can either go to manage accounts there, or say connect new here. Let me go ahead and zoom in for y'all a little bit more. Then this is important. So you can choose very specific, organization. So maybe you want to send it to every single time you run this action, it sets it to a specific parent page. For us though, we're just going to have it set where AI guesses this field. For the title, I'm going to have AI guess this field as well. And for the content, AI guess this field as well. So we're doing that so that we can leverage GPT to its max potential. Saying that though, you can add fixed text here or just not include the field at all. For us though, the next most important thing for us to identify is the actual action name itself. We're going to keep it simple here. We're just going to say create page. You may want to have a specific way or formatting it, because what you'll notice here is that every single time you create a page, you could have a more specific use case. So actually, just to showcase that, let's go ahead and do this. We're going to go ahead and say create report. And as you'll see here, you may create pages for different contexts because depending on the data that you're feeding it. For now though, we have one last very important option here, which is basically a checkbox on whether you want to say yes before it does the action or just let it automatically do the action. That is up to your discretion. For us, we're going to actually leave that unchecked, and we're going to hit enable action here. So we have officially created our AI action for our GPT to use. One other thing I want to point out here that I wasn't really kind of didn't really interpret it this way, but honestly, when I was messing around with this a little bit earlier today, I realized AI actions, and in the context of ChatGPT, actually makes you be able to do automations easier because of the fact that you can let AI guess to fill in a lot of, basically AI guess the page title, AI guess whatever. It actually makes this whole process a lot easier relative to the standard front-end UI. That being said, though, when using Zapier on the front-end UI, you're actually able to do a lot more complex stuff, which could be more value. But for now, we've created our action and we've called it create report. So as we know from our tutorial here, I'm going to go ahead and jump in the middle, y'all. As we know from the tutorial here, we have went ahead and already created this action here with all this schema. On top of that, we have two actions available for us within this, which is going to be listing all available actions. So we're going to showcase that here, and the ability just to run an action. So the way this works in this context is that it will grab the specific available action ID, which was found in the URL of the action we just created. Yes, I'm saying action a lot. But for now, we have everything we need to do today. So we're gonna go ahead and upload a knowledge file so I can just showcase some of its power. So if you're familiar with this channel, you're familiar with this study. It's one of the free PDFs that doesn't require me to put in an email or a lead gen. This is just a report on global warming and just a science report, right? So we're gonna use this in today's context. I'm gonna go ahead and start off by uploading the file here. Next, it is very important that you check off code interpreter. This is gonna give ChatGPT the ability to read that file in the context of conversations. That needs to be checked. DALL-E image generation, not too pertinent, depending on whatever your context is. You can uncheck that if you want to. And finally, web browsing. I'm gonna keep that checked because I'm gonna show you a really cool feature and a really cool way to approach that in the context we're showing today. So once we've uploaded that file here, I'm gonna go up here to update only me. And in theory, I could test this within the system itself, e.g. this thing right here, but we can actually just go ahead and jump straight into our GPT here and begin the process. Okay, so right now our GPT is kind of like unilateral. It's called Zapier AI Actions GPT. In the context of how you plan on using Zapier or whatever it may be, you could make it more fine-tuned and more specific to basically leveraging it for Notion, right? But just using Zapier's backend in order to access the API. That being said, this first go around, the output's not gonna look amazing. I'm gonna do that on purpose because I want to show you what we can do inside the instructions of GPT in order to ensure that every single time we run the output, it actually is consistent and we don't have to keep telling it to, try again, basically. Saying all that though, let's just learn, a real quick thing we can do with this so we understand what's enabled. List all actions you can do. So this is going to use that first little action point that says list all actions here. So the only one we should see here is create report. And as we know, this was specifically in the context of Notion's API on create page. Saying that, you'll always be prompted with this. We're just going to say always allow so I don't have to keep saying allow. And we can go ahead and proceed here. You may also get prompted to basically give an OK to allow Zapier and OpenAI to work together. Just simply click the link and give it the green light. So once it is done that, we can see that we only have one available action, which is what we created together, which is create report. Really good stuff here. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to say, okay, based on the knowledge file I just uploaded about global warming, we want to run the action of create a report. We need the following information. So this is why I referenced how we're going to go ahead and update the instructions later on, but I'm just showing you basically what would happen if we just didn't have any instructions and we just went straight for it. I'm going to say thesis of the report. Comma here, main bullet point summary of the report. And we're going to say articles you find online to back up the thesis. So this is where the power of the web browsing is very, very powerful, because now we're going to be able to analyze the underlying data file we just uploaded, which is a global warming report. But on top of that, we're going to be able to look for external data for this use case to back up a thesis about that report, e.g. search the internet, find articles, wherever that may be. We're going to hit allow here and proceed. So since I didn't identify the specific area for this underlying report to go to, as I let AI kind of, do your thing, basically, I got an error. This is expected. This is all beta. So I'm actually going to come back over to testing AI. We're going to go ahead and basically call the parent page testing AI. Come back over here and we're going to get a refresh. I'm going to go back to the chat. Okay, let's do the parent page of testing AI. The reason I keep this in here in these kind of tutorials is to show you this isn't perfect. So I do this on purpose. I mean, I want to show y'all if you run into errors, it isn't like something unique for you. This just happens. It's just how it is. I mean, obviously this is all early technology, so I'd rather you see me how to troubleshoot it than me just, make a quick edit and act like that didn't just happen. So I ran into the error again. I'm gonna keep proceeding though, and we should be able to, smooth it over pretty soon here. So it says suggestions of articles. We're gonna go ahead and say, go ahead and find these articles with the links. using web browsing. So what we're going to learn later on in this tutorial is how to talk to it less, but get the information that's pertinent. So in this context, I'm going to make sure in the future, when I say go find these articles, I don't have to say use web browsing, as that can get annoying, additional time, and basically let's just get to the point of what we're looking for. There we go. So as you see, we're getting articles to back up the thesis in that PDF we uploaded here. From here, we're going to go ahead and attempt to basically ask it to provide all that information and create this report. We're going to say, okay, take all this information and use the action of create report. When doing this, make sure to include the article links. So enter here, see if this works out. And another great thing about using GPT now, you get this a lot. So I guess I'll be back in an hour. Okay, we're back. I look a little different. Went ahead and put on a sweater. It is getting colder in the bay here, so I gotta warm up. But one thing I want to point out, as I was running into issues and I realized why I wasn't able to find the specific page, the parent page, in the context of running that action. It's because when you connect and authenticate, let me make sure my mic's a little bit closer here, y'all. When you connect and authenticate, all right, when you authenticate, can I speak? When you authenticate with Notion and connect with this API, the actual connection process, as you'll see here, requires you to do it again if you have a new page. This is more in the context of when you create a parent page, not in the context of creating pages through the API. So what I mean by that is if you're running into issues, sometimes you gotta come over here and hit reconnect. Once we are here, we're going to say select pages, and this is what's important here. So I'm going to select all the pages so it has access to all of them here. Hey, allow access here, and then this should solve the error that you may face during that process. Knowing that, let's jump back in here. I'm going to go ahead and reproctor it back to where we just left off. So I caught up, we analyzed what we had in our knowledge base, we searched the internet for supporting articles, we asked for a thesis, asked for a summary. Now we are at the stage here where I've identified the specific parent page, inner context, or page called GPT example, which I created earlier here. As you know, and as you saw, we gave the access API wise to this. On top of that, let's see what this first output's going to be when we create this page in this parent. Today is not my day, y'all. I got the usage cap again. Make sure to leave a like if you feel like you learned something up to this point. I got to come back in another 2 hours. So we're back at it. This is probably one of the longest videos I've had to ever shoot before. I don't know what was going on with ChatGPT today. I think for some reason I was hitting usage caps like really fast, like abnormally fast. Without further ado, let's go ahead and continue this tutorial. So I got it to work. I was running into issues earlier. I'm not too sure why, but basically here's a troubleshoot method I wanted to show y'all, and then I'll show you the real version of the data actually push that we were working with in this video. Basically, I'm like, let's test our actions to see if they even work. I asked it to list the actions that it can have, as you see, as create reports, and then I ask provide test data, and let's just see if it works. And as you see here, it went ahead and attempted said action, and it did work, providing me with the URL here and showing me that the action works. So use that as a troubleshoot when you're trying to do complex tasks with Zapier GPT. Sometimes just limit what you're inputting, start with just basic data and ask it just to see if the action works and kind of troubleshoot that way. So we're back over to where our data's at. Let's just run it. We're going to go ahead. We've already gone through the PDF, gone through web browsing. Let's go ahead and push it as our first initiation to show this action working. So I was able to finally do it, but as you see here, I was running into a lot of issues here. So we're gonna go ahead and make sure we edit our Zapier GPT in order to circumnavigate a lot of this. But if I click here, we got our very basic report thrown here. Come over here, basically we don't have the article link structured. So let's actually really just get down to the instructions in here and make sure that when we do this, every time we do this, it works perfectly and we have no issues. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make sure to grab this ID. This ID can also be found when you click to edit the underlying action. You can come up to the URL here, and you can just go ahead and copy it to basically the huge string of characters. So make sure you have that copied on your clipboard. Next, let's go to our GPT here. We're gonna go to configure, and we're actually gonna add this manually as we're gonna want a little bit more structure here. So we're gonna go ahead and say this. We're gonna say when I ask for the action of create, quotation marks, create report, use the following action ID. So this is how we're going to structure like all actions. So if you really create a versatile GPT, we're going to structure it like this so we can kind of have consistent outputs on how we want it to be proctored and the outputs of this nature. So we're going to say, when I ask for the action of create report, use the following action ID. This is referenced right here. Structure this output in the following style, utilizing the knowledge base for the data and the web browsing feature for supporting data. Semicolon, should we do a period here? I'm gonna go ahead and make sure I spell this all correct. One thesis statement. I'm gonna go ahead and add a one here. Say two supporting articles with links typed out. I'm going to say thesis statement for the knowledge base PDF. So why I'm doing this is, as you saw in the Zapier GPT, is that there was situations with how I was structuring the output. So this is how we're going to be able to identify specific ways we want the output structured. In addition, under this logic, if I just say create report with this current standing here, I shouldn't have to say anything else and it should proceed. So I'm going to go ahead and confirm this and jump into this chat. And just for everyone watching, I'm going to zoom in real quick, as I did just notice this was kind of small here. But as you see, this is how we structured that instructions. And actually, we don't even need to jump into the chat. We can actually do it here. We're going to say we want to do create report, as we'll be able to get debug messages as well, so that if we do run into issues, it's a lot more transparent of what's occurring. As you see here, we got our debug messages and the relevant information that we care about. As you see, create a report based on the contents of global warming study.pdf document uploaded by the user. Perfect. There we go. And then we got to receive data here. And we should see a thesis statement and supporting articles. And we see neither. So let's go ahead and reproctor a little bit more. So we're going to try round two here. Let's go ahead and see if it works. Okay, so we're getting some here. So we got a title now. We got a thesis for this underlying piece of paper, but we still don't have the articles. So we're going to actually have to do two steps in order to ensure that we have consistent outputs for this context. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and restructure this prompt here and find one that works perfectly. And then we can kind of walk through it line by line. So I got it to work, y'all. There is a lot to learn here. There's a huge learning curve here, but I think as the technology gets better, it'll be a lot easier. But what I've learned throughout this process today is, in order to achieve very specific outputs, e.g., basically in this context, we have a thesis statement, we got the contents of the thesis statement, and then we have the article, as you see here as well above me. You need to actually make it pretty specific in the use case. So what I did, instead of writing it directly into the instructions, is I took my original instructions here, as you see, with the ID, the report, and then telling it exactly what I wanted to do for that action. I pasted it here, and then we were getting outputs like this, which I like, right? So I hit here, we're able to get the thesis statement and the supporting articles. Knowing this, let's see if this works on the front end. So what we learned today is that when you make these kind of GPTs using Zapier, make it niche specific. E.g., if I was going to create another GPT for a separate API, I would probably specialize it for that API. So in this theory, I would probably call this Zapier plus Notion and then proceed that way. That's why you see the questions are more niche down. Everything's more niche down for your specific use case. That seems to be the way to go about it. When I say niche down, though, it could be very much so that you're using this in the context that you provide stuff in the knowledge base, you condense it, find the data, and see what you care about. Let's create a report on Notion on climate change. Oh my gosh. Y'all, please like this video. This is crazy, y'all. It's a new day. We're jumping back in. Let's see if this works. So I went ahead and used the web browsing feature. As you see, we got our title here, we got our thesis, and we got our relevant supporting, data that was found with these little quotation marks will take us directly to a website. This is an example article that supports our underlying thesis found in that original PDF. Also, what's interesting, it looks like it's actually getting past a paywall here / ad block wall. That's interesting to know about GPT. Knowing all this though, let's go ahead and just run this action. Okay, proceed to create report. Looks like we have to use the dictation of actually referencing Zapier AI Actions itself and the create actions report action. Sometimes we'll be prompted to do this. So we're gonna go ahead and say it out loud. And you might be asking, what is going on with this dude's shirt? I'm wearing a green shirt today, so it's kind of messing with the green screen as well. Now, once you give authentication like that, you just want to say okay and proceed. You don't want to click the button again as you are green lighted. This looks really cool when I have a green shirt on. I just realized that. But we've got ahead and got our page here. I will say this entire process was a lot more glitchy than I was expecting it to be. It seems like there's limitations still, as this is all in beta still. What I will say is here are the rules of thumb to walk by if you plan on using Zapier GPT in the context of Notion or just in general. Also, as a side note, you can go ahead. Oh, wow. Look at that. Oh my gosh. This is actually super. It's right. It's like literally behind me. I noted. I know I can literally be like a floating head. But side note, you can go ahead and talk to it here if you want to structure your outputs to be more specific, like I kind of showed earlier in this tutorial, where it was more of just like, just give me the article links, give me a thesis statement. What I will say is, based off my experience using it up to this point, it seems like whatever data you do push to a page in the context of Notion, you want to have it to be limited amount of data. So what does that mean? That means that we are going to go ahead and use large data files that we put in our knowledge base and what we find, we find articles on the internet, and we're going to try to condense that data as much as possible. So when we push it to Notion pages, it is not like three pages worth of content. Seems like the way that it's currently set up, it likes to handle data that is smaller. With that being said, another rule of thumb that I've learned while using this Zapier Actions GPT, specialize it. As you saw throughout this tutorial, we specialized it for this context of research and for the context of climate change. Whatever your specific tasks are and how you want to really leverage Zapier AI GPT outside of just the Zapier platform front-end UI that we do a lot on this channel, in this context, in ChatGPT, change that logo, change that name, change that small description. You want to basically use Zapier's backend, but achieve specific tasks that you care about, with the specific name. So in this context, I would have changed that logo to maybe some, scientist. Then I would have had to change the title to like Notion research report, stuff of this nature. It seems like we want to use the custom actions that is afforded to us through Zapier GPT, but everything else should be instructions based off our specific tasks. So knowing that, I hope you learned something today. Make sure to leave a like. This was one of the longest videos I had to do, just due to the fact that it seems like yesterday there was a lot of usage of OpenAI, causing me to basically have to keep hitting walls when it came to GPT and the limitations there. But without further ado, I'll see you in the next video.
Thanks for tuning in. And yes, surprise, I'm an AI avatar. Make sure to explore more here at Corbin AI, where we demystify AI for your personal and business life. Until next time.